like a reason that you just like told somebody to grab somebody that I was trying to talk to and started pointing at us?
Yeah.
What's the reasoning for that?
Yeah, because we looked you guys up.
What are we? No? I mean, I'm just curious. I was trying to just talk to people and have civil discussions, and you just took them away. Are you against discourse? Are you against people having conversations because they disagree with you? What's the deal here? What's up, guys? Welcome back to Red Top Report. I'm your host, Joe Enders, and we are at the Michigan Clean Energy Now event because Pope Francis was recently talking with Bill Clinton and the Clinton Foundation about climate change. So we're here to talk to some of the people here about climate change and their thoughts. Is there a point of no return? Is there a point at which, humanity has contributed so much to climate change that it's kicked off a process that we can't reverse? And is reducing our climate emissions actually going to help? Is it actually going to turn back that clock and prevent the global temperature from rising anymore? Sea levels rising, more extreme weather events I've heard a lot about in here.
A lot of folks point to that 2050 being that point where again we're trying to prevent the Earth rising. That I think folks may have heard of raising 2 degrees Celsius. That's what we're trying to contain, and around that 2050 time frame is generally what's considered to be that time frame, obviously there, and so that's what folks consider a point to there. But 2050, but we can't wait to get to that point. We have to operate faster and more aggressive. We don't even want to get close to that time frame.
Yeah. So let's say we get to that point of 2050. It's 2023 right now. We're coming on 2024. We're looking, you're talking about 30 years down the road and stuff right now. I feel like a lot of the wealthier communities, specifically the ones that are involved in real estate across the country, things like that, they seem to be promoting this idea that there is this CO2 being pumped in the atmosphere. It is warming the climate and stuff like that. Yet I see them, also investing in beachfront property and getting 30-year mortgages on high-rises in these areas. Do you think that they actually even believe what they're supporting, or if they're just putting their money behind something that they think is trendy?
Yeah, I won't speak for those individuals, but I'll just say broadly in general, I think we need to be more conscious of our actions and how we our activities that emit carbon and other emissions that cause, again, asthma and those other negative health effects.
Yeah, is that CO2 doesn't cause those things though? That would be, more like pollutants that are coming into the atmosphere through industry, which, hey, I will march, I will march to the gates of hell fighting with you on that. I think that we need clean air, we need clean water. People have a right to their human dignity. This is Catholic teaching. Pope Francis writes about that in Laudato Si, one of his encyclicals on climate change specifically. I mean, we have dominion over the earth. We're custodians of the earth and that. But I guess the question is what do we shift to from here? Do we go to solar? Do we go to wind? Do we go to nuclear? Do we go to what are we looking at as a Michigan community that actually wants to help change the environment and make it better?
Absolutely. Solar, clean energy sources. When we think about clean energy sources, again, solar, wind, battery storage, that's energy that we can store and use when, for example, when the wind is not blowing or solar panels, the sun is not shining. That's going to be a big key. There are technologies right now, and they're going to continue to improve, that we can shift towards that eliminate all those emissions, whether we're talking about CO2 or some of those other toxins. Fossil fuels emit all of those, and so strictly going away from fossil-based solutions and to cleaner sources will help us get it.
Now, I don't want to say CO2 is not a toxin, though, right? CO2 is not a toxin. CO2, if I remember correctly,
that's emissions. So CO2 along its emissions along that.
Is that a toxic emission, though? Isn't that something that for example, the trees actually breathe in order to grow and become bigger trees and stuff like? I'm just going back to my environmental science education. So are we labeling CO2 a toxin?
We are labeling emissions. So again, when we're looking at switching from fossil, we're looking at CO2, we're looking at NOx and SOx, all these other harmful emissions that come from the byproducts of burning these harmful fuels. That's what we're trying to attack at.
Gotcha. And have you ever heard of any of the research that's been being done recently in more of the geological community that have been saying, for example, remember there was a hole in the ozone layer? They were talking about there being a hole in the ozone layer that actually they believe to be created by the volcanic ash from the Mount St. Helens eruption and a few other eruptions across the country, and as well as the oceans being heated up by increased geothermal activity. Have you heard anything about that and those studies?
The studies maybe you can point me to specifically the studies you're referring to. I can't comment.
No, yeah, I was just curious if you knew about it or not. So I guess what I really want to ascertain here is what we're looking at by, pushing these regulations on the fossil fuel industries, labeling things like CO2 as like a harmful emission or something that's actually the thing that we are doing to control the things. Is it better that we try to stop reversing something that appears to be a natural process that may have been influenced by humans, but is a natural process? The globe has warmed in the past. It's warmed over in those situations and stuff like that. And maybe move more towards preventative measures, like maybe putting levees around some of our coastal cities so they don't get, consumed by the ocean in 2050.
Yeah, again, what we were just discussing earlier, the consensus in terms of, again, many years of study that show man has significantly contributed to the emissions and to climate change. And so this addressing that wholesale. I mean, I don't think we try to quibble.
Would you be okay with the government funding research coming to conclusions that may challenge that believed consensus?
I'm here to support policies to move us away from that. I think there's general consensus.
I only ask because the reason the consensus exists is because the government only funds projects that support that conclusion, that research that supports that conclusion, that goes towards those sorts of things. So when I hear that there's other evidence out there, like the geothermal theory and volcanism theory that I was talking about before, I would like to see, the Michigan representatives, the state of Michigan, support debate in the scientific community, so there's actually a way for people to go out there and study, climate change and see if it can be reversed by reducing our CO2 emissions. Hey, if it can and it saves lives, let's go for it. But if there's no evidence supporting that, and I haven't seen any evidence supporting that we can reverse the natural progression of climate change once we've kicked it off, we can only push off the inevitable. So I would just ask, is there a way that we could put protective measures in place for the effects of climate change as opposed to actually trying to reduce CO2 emissions, which is going to harm our industry, which is going to destroy people's jobs that people use to feed their families? I could think of like let's say DTE went out of business tomorrow or something like that, and we beat them, and now we have all these people going into the solar panel industry, putting solar panels on houses, and all those people at DTE just lost their jobs. So what does that look like?
We are there again. There's been many years of study that show that man has greatly contributed to the change in our climate. This is a transition in our economy, and we can look to the harmful effects that fossil fuel, that our utilities have been burning, all the millions of dollars of effects that they've had on people's health, for example. So.
I agree with that. Fossil fuels, burning fossil fuels, burning toxins in the air, not carbon dioxide, but carbon monoxide going into the air is not something that's healthy for human beings to be breathing in. It can lead to causes of cancer. There's all sorts of other things like that.
Well, we're fighting for a clean future.
Fighting for a clean future. What about you?
I just like to see ecosystems in the world recover. My family is from Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is kind of predicted to be completely underwater, and I'd like to kind of contribute to that not happening.
Yeah, so what about you?
We need environmental action and environmental change within legislation, and unless people show up and show out, we're not going to get that support that we need.
Gotcha. Now, are you guys students right now?
I'm a student at Muskegon Community College.
I'm a U of M student for my grad program.
U of M social work student.
Gotcha. So how did you guys hear about this event? What brought you guys, were your teachers talking to you guys about this? Was this something, she's like, yo guys, you go to that extra credit, yo guys, you get anything like that?
Yes, to my teachers promoting it. I'm in the social work program, so we believe in environmental justice and environmental change. There was not an extracurricular attachment to this coming to here right now. I just wanted to show up and show out, like I said.
Just really passionate about the event.
Right, no extra credit. Just came here because I'm affiliated with a lot of the people here today, so got the emails and came.
Same, I heard about it from a professor, but yeah, I'm just here because I want to support.
That's really great, and you know what I like to see is that young people are actually passionate about what's going on in the country and how they can actually go out and improve the country. So we're actually with the Catholic organization, and our group is we recently saw that Pope Francis was actually meeting with the Clinton Foundation, specifically talking about fighting climate change. So in that regard, what would be your guys' message to people of faith out there that are concerned with climate change?
I think it's very important that people of faith come up and show out, and this is how the civil rights movement became so big and so popular. People of faith became a huge part in it, and so I think as many of you who are people of faith, if you come out, stand up for climate change, justice, whatever, we love you for it. So.
Just as the rally was started today by someone of faith, they said that they believe their faith led them here. And I think that no matter what person's faith is or is not, they are impact on this earth and the earth impacts them. And if you have a faith that leads you to come with climate justice and change, I think that's really powerful.
I think people of faith, or just like faith communities, have a lot of power to do a lot of good. And yeah, please continue showing up for our earth.
I've noticed that one of the climate things that we've talked about a lot is that how is the Earth supposed to sustain itself with like so many people on it? I mean, how many people are we at now? I think like 8 billion people. So do you think a climate agenda would include anything along the lines of, okay, so how do we promote a civilization that's more sustainable, and with that more sustainable, like involving the global population? What do you think are some solutions to that?
I think the biggest solution people can do is choose more plant-based options where you have the accessibility. I mean, there's nothing wrong with making a few changes just to better the environment. Just sustainable options, carpooling. Yeah.
I think that change happens on a micro and macro level. That's why people are here showing out, because they can make personal changes in their lives. But that's also why we're here to support this legislation, because even if everybody makes a change, we have to have that change show within the government and show within legislation, and then that will help also promote a sustainable world and environmental justice.
I agree with that. I think we need to put a lot of pressure on our legislators and on kind of just like big, powerful corporations to really move towards renewable energy, because I think there's been a big push from a lot of large corporations who really have no interest in clean energy to kind of put the onus on us as individuals to like take shorter showers, recycle more, but that's not going to be enough. Like we really need to focus on putting pressure on the people who have power.
Yeah. Okay, so I got one last question. So obviously right now there's a giant battle regarding, reproductive rights, reproductive health, things all along those lines. So when I talk about the global population, do you think that the push to continue for, like women's reproductive rights and stuff like that is part of that push to reduce climate change?
Let me think on that.
Okay.
1 second.
I think all social issues are interconnected. I mean, when you fight for one injustice, you fight for another, and so you can't really have one without the other completely. So if you want to fight for one justice, you should really put in your help for all the other ones.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of thinking about the specific connection, but yeah, no, I agree that there are a lot of kind of intersecting issues that kind of relate to climate justice. Like one that comes to mind is just like racism and like classism in this country, and just the fact that climate change is disproportionately affecting BIPOC communities and poorer communities, and just thinking intersectionally, like that impacts all aspects of health. But yeah, I feel like I need to think a little bit more about the specific connection to reproductive.
Well, so like there's groups, there's like a really Thank you. I didn't even notice. Thank you. So there's like a specific group, and it's a climate action group, and they're called the Center for Biological Diversity. And the Center for Biological Diversity kind of puts it this way. And when you're talking specifically like about women's reproductive rights, women's reproductive health choices and stuff, what they say and what they argue is that this idea of like there being all these people on the world is actually making the use of more resources, causing the more trees to get cut down, more stuff going on and stuff like that. So what they're saying is that the fight for reproductive health, the ability for somebody to choose whether they want to have kids or not, and that sort of thing is like part of fighting the climate, fighting for the climate. So there's less resources being used. That's what I was more asking about. I wasn't sure if you guys aren't familiar, totally understand, but you guys are all women, so I wanted your perspective on it, obviously.
I think, as they previously mentioned, every social justice impact organization is almost interconnected, but I'm not sure that every part of every social justice movement is here or there for the next, like you said, kind of this organization that I'm not terribly familiar with is using climate action and climate justice to support reproductive and vice versa. I think that in every social justice movement you have organizations like that. I'm not sure every portion of every organization or every social justice movement supports those ideas, but I can see how that can be found within social justice movements and frameworks. I'm not sure I support or deny that, though.
Gotcha. No, I understand.
Yeah, I mean,
anything you'd add? I guess
anything to add? I mean, I'm not too worried about global overpopulation with people. It's more so the resources that we use and directing the right resources to the right people and from the right sources.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, no, similar. Yeah, I think I more support just like the right to choose in general when it comes to reproductive rights, like whether to have children, how many children to have, etc. And I think I also support just like access to just like child care and like pregnancy care that can make that process smoother and safer. I am still like I feel like I need to think more about the connection
no problem.
to
I know intersectionality is like very important with these sorts of social justice issues and stuff. And when that's one of the reasons I was asking, because I feel like there's a lot of LGBTQ plus here. There's lots of there's just a lot of diversity just in general here. So I just want to get the intersectionality on the issues. I just want to get the intersectionality on the issues kind of worked out so I can kind of figure out where everybody's coming from here and report on it accurately. So is there anything else you guys want to add to this?
I say as long as people at home are happy, healthy, we listen to the science on how to do that, and also listening to people at home, how they feel safe in their own home, their own lifestyles. I mean, that's what matters at the end of the day, and so the lawmakers should listen to us as constituents. I mean, we're young voters. We deserve to be listened to because we know what we feel safest, and so does science, so I guess.
Anything else? All right, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. That was great. I hear a lot of people saying that we need to stop this before it gets worse. I was actually talking to another gentleman over there. He was saying that the year is 2050 when things, start going wrong, when you're starting seeing sea levels rising to a place like that. I've heard that before. I heard that from Al Gore, and it was supposed to be this year. You know what I mean? Or maybe 3 years ago or something like that. There's a lot of people, saying, "Oh, this is just alarmism. Oh, we don't need to worry about climate change right now." When I hear people say that, I actually don't agree with them. I don't agree with them when they say something like that. It's not necessarily alarmism. What I think that people are seeing is that maybe something is happening. The climate is changing right now, and it might have even changed because of human interaction. We don't know. I don't know. I don't know whether it did or not. There's a body of evidence that says that it does. But for me specifically, I ask, can we actually reduce our carbon emissions enough to reverse this process that's already been kicked off by the Industrial Revolution?
I hope so. I really do. I hope so. And I mean, for me personally, I bought my first electric car this year, and I think there is something to be said. People say, oh, if I go,
Is that an electric car?
Yeah, I drive an electric car. I drive a Chevy Bolt EUV, so it's been great. It's union made right here in Michigan, so I'm super excited about that.
So I guess my next question then is is like, so there's a lot of people saying electric is the future and that, we're focused on making the air cleaner, we're focused on doing all of these things. I don't know that electric is actually the solution. And I say that electric might not be the solution because we can look at things like, okay, when you plug in your car to charge it, when you do all these things, what are you plugging it into? You're plugging it into an outlet from a DTE plant or whatever that is powered by coal, or that is powered by oil, or that is powered by something else. And then beyond that, you're also driving in a car with a battery that's made out of lithium, which is mined by children that get poisoned and killed overseas. So when I look at things like that, I don't know that electric is the solution that we need. I've heard a lot of different discussions, like, maybe hydro, maybe geothermal, maybe things like that. But I just want to know, what do you think about this? Is there like a misinformation campaign about electric cars at all in any capacity regarding this?
So I think that everything you said there is important. I think hydro is important. I think making sure that our cars are made, our transportation that we use every day is made in an ethical manner. I think that wind power is important. I think solar is important. And that's why this bill that they're voting on behind me today is so important, is because it will make, so when I plug in my electric car, it might not be going to a DTE, a coal burning power plant in the future. It might be coming directly off that solar grid. So I think that all these pieces really do need to play together, and that's why it needs to be an effort on behalf of everybody. And I think that's really what this comes down to at the end of the day. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think that we can take these incremental steps to make it better. And you say, what if there's a misinformation campaign about the effects of climate change or something like that? In my mind, the worst thing that happens from that is it wasn't real, and we made the environment cleaner anyways. So in my eyes, I want to say, because if we're wrong, that's the end. I mean, that could be it, so I'm okay with being wrong. If it comes back in 200 years that we were wrong, at least the water and the air are clean. I mean, that's still a separate issue in and of itself.
That's my thing, is that they try to say that the issues are the same, of having clean air and clean water are the same as reducing CO2 emissions. Well, I mean, CO2 emissions aren't really the issue. I mean, a soda can is carbonated water. So we look at things like that. What they're trying to do is they're trying to limit CO2, and then they'll put these limitations on fossil fuel producers. They'll put these limitations on several different industries and how they're going about the climate change issue. And that actually prevents people from having jobs in many cases. That you can think about plants being shut down. You can think about the requirements that these companies put on scrubbers for all of their clean coal burning plants that didn't need them to begin with. All that stuff costs them money. That reduces their ability to hire people, to pay people, to give union workers good jobs and stuff like that. So there's something to be said, I think, from the conservative position about these specific regulations regarding CO2 specifically. Because as I said, you're right. Hey, if we're wrong about this, at least we have clean air and water. I think we can have clean air and water without regulating the carbon dioxide emissions of things. Maybe we can regulate the amount of carbon monoxide emissions, the things that are actually poisonous gases for humans to be inhaling.
Yeah, no, like I said, all of it plays, I'm giving you the same answer, but all of it does play a part. I mean, there are so many different particulates, and even what we thought, Freon, it wasn't toxic, back when we created it, and we didn't know. And even today we're seeing things like PFAS in our water that we just didn't know, and we can't regulate for the future for things we don't know. And that's why these scientists that are working on these things, their work really does matter, because it informs the decisions we make. And yeah, I'm not saying that we need to, if you didn't know at the time that dumping X, Y, or Z into the water was gonna kill plants or pollute the water, that's not what I'm saying. We didn't know. I mean, we're human, we learn, we grow from that. But I think that we need to be conscious of that. And if somebody, hey, this looks weird, this doesn't look right, this could be a problem, I think that's something that we need to take seriously, is all.
It's one of those things where I've often kind of taken a step back. I've kind of thought about the issue overall, and I don't mind that there's people out here concerned for making the environment better. I actually think that's good. I like that there's people concerned for the environment. I'm a Catholic. I believe that we have dominion over the earth. We ought to take care of it. We ought to keep things nice and clean and good for all of these people. But what I often see with the alarmism is people saying definitively that we have to have this legislation regulating carbon emissions. We have to have this specific thing because the sea levels are going to rise and New Orleans is going to be underwater, Miami is going to be underwater, Bangladesh is going to be underwater, all these different parts of the world are being done. What it seems to me is like they're engaging in scare tactics, and what I would personally say is misinformation, because there's no body of evidence that's actually telling people that CO2 is the definitive cause of this from human beings and us having these cars. What we see is that there's a debate, there is a consensus going on right now. You know, there's people that think that it could be the increased geothermal activity in the oceans that's warming the oceans and causing the sea ice to melt. There's people saying that, and I'm a scientist, by the way, we're talking people, PhD level people, saying that volcanoes erupting is causing holes in the ozone layer because for example, a volcanic eruption has released almost as much CO2, if not more CO2, into the air than human beings have in the entire Industrial Revolution. And when we think about it from that perspective, you say, should there be a debate on this issue? Should we only be funding people that say in the affirmative that carbon dioxide emissions are causing these problems? Or should we say, let's fund everything and let's see if we can have a debate about this?
Yeah, so I haven't seen whatever report you were talking about there, so I don't know if I can speak to that one. I don't want to say anything that I have not seen that, so I guess no comment on that one.
Yeah, it's mostly from the geology community specifically, because they'll study different types of like I said, geothermal activities as well as volcanic activities and stuff like that. I'm just curious, is like, should we fund other bodies of work besides those saying that CO2 in the affirmative is causing this?
Well, I mean, there's not these scientific organizations. I mean, some of the more national ones may receive government funding. I guess I'm a little bit confused by your question. Usually government doesn't fund like specific research unless it's like related to
it's based on federal grants and sometimes state grants as well.
Yeah, and those are going to be set up by, you know, your federal, your state politicians, and there's certain requirements you have to meet. It could be based on size, it could be based on whatever. There's so many factors to that, and some of them are even like, oh, if you're in a city with this amount of population, like it's very specific, and it could be that like, oh, we're trying to really understand this one thing. So I think there is a place in there to study all sorts of different effects on the environment. I think that's perfectly fair. Let's understand it all. That's why, you know, let's learn.
I think that that's a very fair point, and I'm actually very impressed with like your ability to just discuss the issue and have your own opinions on it. So I guess one of the things I want to ask you, just as kind of a final point, is what have I missed? What is something that you want to let people know about regarding the climate issue specifically, in order to, you know, help them better understand your position?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a seat for everybody at the table. I mean, I will gladly talk to anybody. If you ever want to reach out to me, you can find me online at Jacob Toomey. I sat down. You can tell me right up front, I don't agree with you on this issue. We're still going to sit down at the table and talk with you. That's okay. That's how the best solutions get made. I mean, I can't tell you how many things I've worked on that I thought were the best idea in the world, and then you get to the table, you start talking with people that disagree with you, and there's unintended consequence. You didn't even think about it. So I think that's important. We want to have a seat for everybody at the table. That's okay. Reach out. You don't agree with what I'm saying? That's all right. If you do, that's cool too. So let's talk about it. Let's get to a solution that works for everybody, and let's protect our planet. It's really what it comes down to. I think everybody can unite in the fact and saying we just want to live clean, healthy lives.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think the issue is protecting the planet. It's truly protecting the planet. How do we truly protect the planet? And I love that you're willing to have that discussion. I don't know that I fully agree with what some of the policy positions that they're promoting right now. There are some things that I thought were pretty interesting, though. So I do appreciate you giving us your time.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Today.
God bless you, man.
It. Yeah. Thank you.
Is there like a reason that you just like told somebody to grab somebody that I was trying to talk to and started pointing at us?
Yeah.
What's the reasoning for that?
Yeah, because we looked you guys up.
What are we? No? I mean, I'm just curious. I was trying to just talk to people and have civil discussions, and you just took them away. Are you against discourse? Are you against people having conversations because they disagree with you? What's the deal here? I do actually want to know that. So not dignifying anything with the response, no civil discourse, no nothing, just I'm going to ignore you, pretend you're not here, and you're going to keep trying to keep people from having a discussion with me. That's what you're going to do.
Are you guys Project Veritas?
Not at all. Nothing to do with them. We're a Catholic organization, and we've had a lot of common ground with people on cleaning up the air and cleaning up the water. But apparently everything else is being ignored right now, so it seems profoundly unfair. But we'll move on, I guess. All right, guys, so we tried talking to those people. We tried talking to the people at the at the press table and stuff. We really don't have any idea why nobody wanted to talk to us anymore. after that. This guy claims to have like looked up our organization and claimed that because of that we're disingenuous and actually can't have reasoned, kind, cordial conversations with people, which we had. So here's my takeaways from this whole thing. I don't think that a lot of this climate change crowd actually knows anything about the climate change issue specifically. What they're doing is they're taking the word for scientists. Taking the word of the scientists that did have that federal grant money used to fund their research for a desired conclusion. There's other research out there that says otherwise, that says other things could be causing climate change. There's things that say it's mostly natural. There's some that say humans are mainly responsible, that aren't mainly responsible, aren't responsible at all. There's a whole wealth of debate to be had. There's a whole amount of discussion to be had right now. But the real question that I can't seem to get an answer to from anybody here is, are we too far down the line? Is the globe just naturally warming? Is it going to keep getting warmer no matter what we do? Is regulating CO2 actually solving any problems, or is it just destroying jobs? There's no answer to that specific question. And the question is instead of spending all this money on CO2, reducing CO2 emissions, we could be spending money on things that are actually going to clean up our air, actually going to clean up our water, and perhaps prevent these cataclysmic predictions that all these scientists have been making. I just feel that the arguments that were made here were extremely disingenuous and actually didn't provide any of us the context we need to understand the climate change narrative on a deeper level. And with that said, guys, that's all we got for this Red Top Report. We'll see you next time.